Example of where they are really organized versus where they're less organized?
I'm less organized in knowing when to turn on the recording.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Sally.
I'm extremely organized in many ways. So like I could show you what I have on my refrigerator. It's like, I figure out all these things, and on I have a whiteboard here, and this very organized paper though is just like, it's kind of like my brain though. My memory is lousy. And so I'm desperately trying to remember everything. And so I highlight everything and stuff. And then it is like overwhelming papers. And it's like, it's really debilitating. So I really wish we had technology understanding these different brain differences. My sisters are, 3 sisters are ADHDers.
Mm-hmm.
One's very organized, and 2 are, one's late all the time and much better than she used to be, but she's 73 now, finally in the last decade. But the rest of the life, that was a really powerful, miserable thing.
Mm-hmm.
There was ADHD, he wasn't late. He was always on time. I was always on time. So it's different for each person,
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah, Gabe, did you want to share as well? Or is that just to acknowledge that you have experienced disorganization?
Yeah, sorry, no, I just had it up, and I'm not a big Zoom person, so yeah, I raised the hand for compliance.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, no problem.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so Sally, actually, I think I've become organized in certain areas of my life for like out of pure desperation and need to be able to manage my life. And so I am ridiculously organized with managing my schedule and my to-do lists. And I live by them. And I think if someone like in my calendar, so if someone accidentally deleted my calendar, my life would fall apart. I would like miss everything. And so yeah, so I have almost a neurotic level of habit around putting stuff on my calendar and writing stuff on my notes. And so I think a lot of my organization stems from need versus just that I grew up wanting to be organized, which is interesting. But in terms of my space, I actually feel very stressed out because it feels like to do stuff when my space isn't clean. So I tend to have it tidied because otherwise I feel overwhelmed and I can't work. And so that's my own little like thing. So each of us is different in terms of how we experience disorganization. So I just wanted to sort of head on address that myth that just because you have ADHD, you're necessarily disorganized in your whole life. Okay, so when I say ADHD friendly tips and tricks, I just mean things that are more likely to work for people who have that type of brain, but they probably work for everybody. So I love this picture because I don't know how many of you have experienced this, but my bedroom used to be like this. So I could either do all of it and it was perfect. And my friends were like, your room's so nice. I'm like, isn't it? Or it looked like that. And my mom would actually took a picture where it literally looks like that and all my drawers are open. And she's like, just to remind you so you can't judge me because it would cycle back and forth. And I actually kept that picture because I was like, I didn't know it was ADHD at the time. It was just like I had an either or mechanic for my bedroom. And it took me a long time to break that pattern in my house too. It was really hard. So the cycle of disorganization, this is what happens. So for some of us, and by some, I mean a lot of us, we tend to accidentally adopt all or nothing or perfectionism. And that means that if my room can't look like this down here, then I don't want to do it. We don't explicitly say that, but we start going on the journey of trying to make it look like this bottom picture. And by the time we actually start, we're so overwhelmed because we know it will never look like this picture that we don't even bother. We already like blew it. We're done before we even like spent our first hour on it. And so it tends to stay up here in this picture, just out of overwhelm. So what we want to do is learn how to stop and start at good enough and be okay with good enough. In fact, a lot of people that I know with ADHD have a hard time being able to tell what's good enough and knowing when to stop. And so part of what we kind of talk about is adopting a bit of a mentality that is helpful in terms of being able to get organized and stay organized. And I want you guys to remember that good enough is your new mantra. Okay. Okay, so the reason why that's important is because you see this back here. This is, I think, really powerful for a lot of people. That's not good enough. We are constantly struggling against this idea that, well, what I am, who I am, how I do it is not good enough. And so we often see that we have to do it really, really well to make up for that. So I would like you guys to just think for a second about the difference here between a fixed and a growth mindset around our ADHD and our ability to change. So on this side, a fixed mindset means that we're kind of stuck, it's limiting, and we end up stopping with this like thought process. It stops us in our tracks. I can't do it. I've always been messy. It's not going to ever be good enough. Or last time I did it, it just got messed up anyways. That's the sort of language we use that stops us from developing new habits or starting new projects that might benefit us. And sure, in the past, maybe it didn't work, but then we have to remember, but maybe this time it will. So we accidentally don't give ourselves the opportunity for growth. And that can be hard. So on the growth side, we just shift our language a little bit to acknowledge that, you know what, I have unique strengths, and that means that I can hyper focus like crazy. So if you want me to clean that kitchen, it's going to be really clean. And things like that. So we can actually leverage some of those traits that we find hard to actually benefit us. The trick is to not try to clean your kitchen in the middle of your workday. So find like a good time, like a Saturday or something, where you're going to allow yourself to hyper focus and be excited and lean into it. And we're going to talk about how to sort of moderate that a little bit. Again, this good enough is showing up. I want you guys to really write it on a sticky note. Okay. We're going to stop at good enough. It can be better later. No one cleans their house and it's perfect the first time. You're going to keep going back and redoing it and refining it every time. And then, of course, asking for help. This is actually an interesting one. I find that a number of people with ADHD have a really hard time with asking for help or using tools, because somehow they expect that nobody else needs to ask for help or use tools in that same circumstance. And so we're going to actually identify some ways that you can outsource some of the stuff. Because as one client said to me one time, don't I need to learn how to pay my own bills though? Because we were talking about auto pay for billing. And I was like, no, just use the auto bill and payment options, free up your time. And the thing she was struggling against was normalizing or normativeness, right? She thought, well, if everybody else is doing it, then why should I be special and allow myself to get help? Without thinking that, sure, like everybody literally enrolls in auto pay. So it's that sort of thinking that we don't even realize we're participating in. And so I like to start this here, because if you are stuck in a fixed mindset, then I can show you all the best tools in the world, and I can tell you all the great resources, and you could sign up and work with a professional, and it still wouldn't work because you wouldn't have changed your mind about it being possible. So here we go. Okay, and I like this one because why we aren't inviting Marie Kondo. Okay, so remember, good enough isn't just good enough. Good enough is perfect. Good enough is better than nothing at all. Okay. And in fact, most people do good enough. What we forget is that sometimes, like, remember when I said, if I go clean the kitchen, I'm cleaning the whole kitchen. That's way more than any of my friends. My kitchen, when I clean it, is cleaner than like anybody else's I know, because I end up hyper focusing on it and like researching how to like organize it. So when we go all the way, we tend to make it kind of amazing. And so we think that that's the normal amount though. So we got to like pull it back a little. And sometimes just your counters being clean is fine. And I love this like little one here. It says, listen, maybe 17 pairs of black leggings do spark joy, Marie Kondo. You don't know me. Because you know what? I'm not going to tell you have to get rid of all your stuff. I'll just tell you to get rid of some of it. So again, Marie Kondo, that whole thing, that alone is so overwhelming. And I would never recommend that you start there unless you're working with a professional and they are like hand-holding, because having to go through every item and make all those micro decisions is actually really hard. And they don't talk about that. Okay.
Can I pop in there for a second?
Yeah, please do.
I just saw a thing a couple months ago that Marie Kondo herself had tweeted that she has like basically stopped doing her program because she now has toddlers, and it's just like she can't even she can't do it in that situation. So,
I've had a saying ever since I had toddlers, which was a long, long time ago, but it was like life is its own best revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I knew that if people weren't there yet, they would be.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say,
Yeah, go ahead, Sally. Yeah.
with Marie Kondo, actually, I'm using a lot of her stuff, which
Mhm.
has actually been really helpful for me, because what I'd
Mhm.
done is I was buying multiples of things, couldn't see
Mhm.
them.
Mhm.
And then I'd be really depressed when I'd find, what, I have 3 more of these and I just ordered. It was terrible. So in my
Yeah.
drawers, very organized, but I'm a single person without children. I can't imagine that. But and I'm not going to do that with everything, but having it so I can actually see what's there, so I don't buy multiples. It's very helpful. And it's so depressing the opposite way when you go, oh my God, I found 5 cans of McCann, whatever, this steel cut oats, and I was like, what am I? But they're
Yeah.
expired a year ago, so I'm buying one at a time,
Yeah.
and that's it. So anyway,
No, I agree, Sally. So I think Marie Kondo is sort of like the Martha Stewart of our era right now. And so it's sort of like Martha Stewart and Thanksgiving. I used to have a thing like Martha Stewart won't be coming to Thanksgiving this year. And I kind of feel that way with like Marie Kondo with cleaning. Like she has some good principles, Martha Stewart has some great recipes, but I'm not going to do all of that. And I will also agree with you that I accidentally hoarded Brita water filters. And I didn't realize this. I put them in the wrong place. And then one day I was doing some cleaning in some cupboard. I'm like, oh, I have like 24 of them. So
but
I've
I
got
think
Brita filters for days. I'm gonna like never run out.
you and I, because we tend on that area, that kind of organized thing, I think we could do it. My father and my sister, 2 sisters,
Yeah.
never could do it.
It's a
So
lot
you
harder.
have to know who you are, but it
Yeah,
really was helpful to me.
that is actually what Sally just said is really important. You do have to know who you are. What works for me, what works for Phil, what works for Beth, doesn't mean it'll work for you. Doesn't mean you're a failure if it doesn't work for you either. It means that's not the right one for you. It's not the right process. So we do have to remember that each of us is going to have to find our own way in some regard to what works for us. Okay, so some quick tips in terms of this really quickly is eliminate decision making whenever you can. So one of the biggest pitfalls in daily life is we have so many decisions and we end up with decision fatigue and overwhelm. And so here are just some things to think about that can help. So if you invest in bins and easy to use storage, then it's easy to pop stuff in there. You don't have to like have a really micromanaged system in your cupboards, especially if they pull out. It can be really useful and it's super efficient. We're going to talk about some apps to clean out your inbox, because I don't know about you guys, but one day I had like over 1,000 work emails and my coworker was like, that stresses me out. I'm like, yeah, now that you mentioned it, me too. Having a place in your home for everything is actually obviously the ideal. You don't always get there, but even if you just have a place in your home for certain things, like this is the drawer where all of my pens and pencils live, things like that. That means that when you clean, you don't have to decide where to put it. It already goes somewhere. So that's an example of eliminating decision making. Some people like to use a staging area. That means that like there's a place in your house where new stuff goes. So that way you don't end up with like 3,000 Brita filters, because you like can see exactly how many you brought in and you go put it in the place where the Brita filters go, rather than what happened at my house, which was 2 of us bought Brita filters and we each put them somewhere else and then couldn't find them and bought more. So that's what happened there. This one is really important too. And we're going to go over this all again. So this is just a quick and dirty, real quick, like some ideas. Apply the time rule. This is hard for all of us. I don't know about you guys, but I've moved some things between 4 houses and still never used them. That's probably time to get rid of it. Even though it's hard, even if it's sentimental, take a picture. There are so many things that we don't need to keep. And the more stuff we have, honestly, the harder it is to clean, because all of that stuff has to go somewhere. So it can be really nice to sort of reduce how much you're working with. And so old stuff, things that are outdated, things that if you've been waiting for 3 years to take it to the right like shelter, maybe either do that or finally give up and go to Goodwill, you know, those sorts of things. So start being really practical about the things that you have. And then this one's great. Body double with someone who's better at saying no. That one is really helpful. So have someone come over who's like, no, that's junk, get rid of it. And I think I learned how to do that with my grandmother who grew up in the Depression and would save like all of the little plastic containers from everything we ever used. And so my family and I used to go and we'd quietly recycle them and get rid of them for her when she couldn't notice because she'd actually dig them back out. That was my grandma. All right. So any questions on this slide? This is just a quick one to give you some tips right off the bat. But the idea is if you can eliminate your decision tree, it makes it way easier and less fatiguing mentally. Okay. So these are just some general ADHD tips on organization. So outsource, outsource, outsource. There's no shame in that. People can do it for cleaning, yard work, taxes, even laundry, some people do. It doesn't matter if it's something that you feel would free up your time, then do that, especially if it's within your ability to do it. Eliminating how much you have to do is one of the best ways for you to start getting organized because we get overwhelmed with the amount of day-to-day stuff. So simplifying what you are in charge of is one of the best places to start. Another one is to be really clear before you start a project. Now, bear with me on this one because this is a big one and people ignore it. Actually, like define the scope of the problem. Like I'm going to go in there and my pots and pans are so difficult to access. I'm going to clean that out so I can get pots and pans out. Because if I say I'm going to go clean the kitchen, that's a much different task. And here's one of my favorite examples because I see it happen a lot. There's a difference between organizing the spice rack and I printed my own custom labels, bought new bottles, decided to reorganize the whole kitchen to put them in a new place. And then I got overwhelmed and I gave up and everything's everywhere. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that story. So sometimes it's really helpful for us to limit ourselves and our enthusiasm. You can eventually do all of that, but maybe don't start there. Okay, so really be clear with yourself, even if it's just writing on a sticky note, it's your agreement with yourself. This is what I'm doing today. Make it easy. So I have never seen a time where the expensive, complicated way of doing it with like the fanciest stuff out there is more useful than like folders and like clear plastic bins and things like that. So you don't need to spend a ton of time researching what sort of storage you can use. Honestly, it's the straightforward, easy to access stuff that you're going to use. So the question to ask yourself before you buy it is, what are you most likely to come back and keep using? It shouldn't be because it's pretty. It shouldn't be because it's cute. It should be because you will use it. And that's really important to ask yourself before you buy anything. And just a shout out to clear bins. They're great. You can see what's inside of them. So I highly recommend that. And then building micro habits. So, you know, we can get all organized in our lives and organize everything. And then it just slowly, you know, entropy, second law of thermodynamics, it will not be organized after a while. And so it's important that if your goal is organizing or getting your life organized, we have to also build the corresponding habits. So if I clean my bedroom and I put all my clothes away, but then I still just throw them on the floor again, it sort of feels like I'm self-defeated, right? I've sort of undone everything and I get frustrated and eventually I'll stop maybe wanting to even clean that space. And all I have to do really is recognize I have to change one very small habit. When I go into my bedroom and I'm changing, I'm automatically either going to put them in the dirty clothes or I'm going to hang them up. And that thing, it takes me 30 seconds. And if I do that one change, I can keep that space organized and cleaned. So when you start working in a space, think about what is the micro habit that will help me keep it like this. For the pots and pans, it would be if I stack them, I should take the extra 20 seconds to lift the pots up and put the big one on the bottom, right? And it seems really straightforward, but if we were already being successful at it, we'd already be doing it. So take a good look at the situation and figure out, okay, what's the one very small habit I can do to maintain my progress? And that's worth it. It feels good when we put all that time and energy into it to be able to maintain it. Are there any questions on this slide?
Yeah, I wrote it in chat, but I'll say it. When you said, so at the beginning, when you said outsource, you said there's no shame in it. I totally agree that there ought not be. How do you work with it when there is a lot of shame?
Oh yeah. Okay. How do you, well,
Can I jump in on that? Because I got some,
yeah.
I
Go ahead, Gabe. Yeah.
have sort of a really unusual background in that I grew up in a crazy family full of high IQ geniuses that were part of a faith healing cult. And so a lot of religious nutty stuff. And because it was a faith healing cult, you know, no medical, you didn't talk about problems because problems didn't exist. And I had a ton of shame about everything. And, you know, everyone in the family had ADHD, but no one knew it. So, one, I actually have, I don't know if I can turn my camera on here. Give me 1 second. I had to put a, let's see if I can switch it around here. I have like a, so this is one of the ways that I stay, can you guys see? So this is one of the ways that I stay organized is my whiteboard. And I just put, this is sort of where I vomit all the ideas and then I can organize from there. And one of the things I have up here is, you know, using a list doesn't make you stupid or bad, because that's what would happen to me if I screwed up. I would get beaten. And so you weren't allowed to use anything. You had to do everything in your head. And for me, I couldn't do that. So I've got visual stuff everywhere. And the shame of it, you know, I think the biggest part is if you notice their shame, it just means you need to do something, you know, and that's just your way. That's your body's way of letting you know that there's something going on there that you just need to address. And once you get it, you know, like if you're feeling shame about the house, go ahead and just start cleaning. It'll, you know, like a little bit that whole, like one of the things with the shame is perfectionism is another big one. So a little like progress over perfection. And so I've got my lists. I've got lists everywhere. I've got notes and, you know, I still have mess and stuff like that. Like I've been working like 14-hour days. So the house is way more messy than I would like it to be, but it's not a complete disaster. And then Saturdays, I get everything back to zero.
Okay.
So
That was a good insight. I like that. Thank you, Gabe.
It's balance, because, you know, if you balance on a teeter-totter, it's no fun. But if you do like what Gabe's suggesting, you have your ebbs and your flows, your ups and your downs, and it's generally balanced overall.
So,
and be kind to yourself, you know, like I get so, I'm super critical and hard on myself. And there's times where it's like, you just got to be like, you know, no one is Marie Kondo, you know, Marie Kondo,
apparently.
you know, she's got an entire film crew helping her out with stuff. You know, it's like, so you do the best you can. And then, one thing that a coach told me is shame is a wasted emotion, because shame is not, I made a mistake. Shame is, I am the mistake. And realizing that you're not a mistake, it's all within your control. You can go out and you can make a change right now. So put on loud music, whatever you got to do to shift your attitude and your emotional state so that you feel better, so you could move forward. And the other thing that really helped me in setting up like systems and routines and stuff like that, because it's the last thing I wanted to do, was reframing it from having a huge monstrous to-do list that has all this stuff that needs to get done and just feeling completely overwhelmed, to thinking of it of like, I do a lot of shooting. And then when you're doing long range rifle shooting, you got to zero your scope. So instead of thinking that like, okay, I have this like 14 different things that I have to do to go through the process of zeroing my scope, it's all about just bringing it back to that 0 point where you're hitting the mark that you want. So I don't think of it in terms of like, oh, I've got this huge list of stuff I've got to do. I think of it in terms of like, oh, my zero's off. I just got to bring it back to 0. And if it's good enough, it's good enough. You know, as long as I'm hitting my targets, 80%, if you're over 51% to your goal, you're on the right track. And if you're over 80%, you're doing just fine. Don't change anything. That's what I learned.
Thank you, Gabe. I think he made a really good distinction that when sometimes, especially with ADHD, we see that we feel like there's something wrong with us. And so trying to accommodate our ADHD feels like inherently something bad, versus I'm a human being who uses tools to be successful in my life, just like every other human. And we see it a lot in young people, and adults don't acknowledge it as much. A lot of students end up with IEPs in school to support them with ADHD, and they refuse to use the support. I mean, it happens over and over again. And if you ask them, it's because they don't want to stand out from everybody else. But if we were to actually talk around the entire room, each of those kids has some form of support, right? It might be that at home they have like support we can't see. It might be that they have music, a special playlist to deal with their anxiety. And so I think we end up feeling like we're the only ones, and we start thinking about the tools that we use as a sign of our failure. And so it comes, like Gabe said, with self-acceptance and acknowledging that like, this is just what success looks like for me. And as long as I'm happy and it works, that's what's important. So that was a great question. Thank you, Phil. Sally, you want to jump in real quick?
Well, shame is something that's actually internal, but it's also part of our systems. It's like Melinda Gates's book, Moment of Lift. It's, you know, how she feels, and I agree with her, that humans are wired to advantage themselves by disadvantaging others, actually cutting people down. And when you start looking at yourself and your filters, each of us does this. But we're seeing the world through our own glasses. But when you've been different, any kind of different, you've been beaten up in different ways. And you watch and you see people who have challenges. I know people, the 1% with, you know, they do not tell you about their challenges. It's all hidden because it is shaming in it. And the way humans treat that is to hammer you down. So it's a really interesting, I just wanted to note that for me, perfectionism has been a real thing. Whenever I've been anorexic like 3 times or something, and maybe it's 4, but each time it was a relationship sort of deal. And what I have done to learn how to get out of it quickly and efficiently is I finally, when it had me, I thought I had it, you know, I was in control, but when things turned around, and that's this perfectionism stuff, if it has you under control, that doesn't work for me. So I started going, good enough. Basically, I want to be normal. I will not be perfect, you know, and that was a struggle. So coming back, making myself eat ice cream, making myself eat meat, or any of these different things, I did get back, and I feel like, you know, it's wobbly, but it's over the decades, it's become really something you can do. So it's not going to be overnight that you're going to go from perfectionist to, yay, you're free, you know. But I think that really helped me to be, I will be normal. I am not going to obsess. I'm not going to be obese. I'm not going to be, but I'm not going to be this anymore. I'm not going to let it control. So
yeah,
I don't know if that helped anybody. It did me. And
thank you, Sally. So I guess that brought to mind 2 things. And the first thing is, in terms of kindness, I always ask people what they would tell a friend. So if your friend said that they were going to hire someone to clean their house because it was really hard for them and you had seen their struggles, would you be like, oh, that's a terrible idea? Or would you go, no, that's probably good for you. Good job. Well done. So sometimes when we have a hard time acknowledging our own needs, if we reflect on what we would say or do for a friend, that helps us feel better about it. But I think what happened for me that really changed my perspective on allowing myself to get more support was when I was working with students, and the difference between fair, equal, and equitable. Equal means everyone gets the same thing. Equitable means that people get different things, but everybody has access at the same level to the playing field. And so some of these things are equitable access. Think about it that way. And all of us deserve that. So it's not equal, it's equitable. And I think that really shifted things for me. Okay, so I like to actually tell you like tools. I hate going to like play meetings where they're like, do all these things. You're like, that's great. How? And you're like, I don't know. So we're actually going to talk about some tips and things that you can do immediately. Okay. So this is one of them that people often like, this resetting principle. So what you do is whenever you leave a room, if you've brought stuff into it, a cup, paper, or things like that, you walk back out with it and you put it where it goes. And if you just do that, like every time you leave a room, it tends to just keep things where they're supposed to be a lot. You might need to tidy a little bit, but it's a small micro habit that has a really big impact. You can also sit down, and when you tackle organization, you should chunk it out. It should never be, like I said, use your sticky note and say, I'm going to clean this cupboard. Don't say, I'm going to clean the whole first floor. That is doomed to fail. So make sure that you have very specific projects in mind, and you can have a big goal. You can have a large roadmap, like this is how I want to feel in my home, but make sure that you pick those projects out and little by little. Even something as simple as the bathroom, if you have space under the sink, if you need to like change things around the walls, if you have a medicine cabinet, there's so many components. And so that would mean there's so many steps. So just focus on specific areas in rooms. And if it has multiple steps, like I want to organize my spice rack, move my spice rack, redo my spice rack, just pick one. Okay. This one I'm gonna say it, get rid of stuff. Most of us with ADHD, it's not that we want to keep stuff, it's that we don't have the practice of getting rid of it. So that's gonna be really helpful. When you're organizing stuff, like have a Marie Kondo moment and be like, does this like 30-year-old magazine bring me joy? No, get rid of it. And actually try to get rid of stuff, because the less stuff we have, the less we have to clean. And with that in mind, I actually literally put magazines on here. This is a real thing. People, including me, I literally right by my, I don't want to show you, right by my desk are a stack of magazines that I've moved from 3 houses now, in 2 countries. And I still haven't finished going through them. I'm probably never going to use those recipes. I should probably just look on Pinterest. So I'm going to throw them out after this conversation. So yeah, you're never going to read them, especially if they're stacked like this. Unless you have a habit of going to the bathroom or at night, you go through one at a time. You could start one, put them by your bed, get rid of them. It's just those sorts of things where we're like, well, one day I might. If you're saying that about it and it's been like a long time, months and months or years, don't hang on to it. Make it fun. This one surprises people. You can actually have fun cleaning. You can be as silly or spontaneous or magical about it as you want. You could have a dress-up cleaning party. I've had a client do that with her partner. You could turn on music, make a special upbeat playlist, get a special snack, have a work party, like do something fun. It doesn't have to be a bummer. I mean, if you're going to have to do something in life, enjoy it. So find what sparks joy for you when you do that process. Can be whatever you want. You could wear a mustache if you want and go clean stuff and have a fantastic time. So be lighthearted and don't take it so seriously, because you're not a failure that you're cleaning your cupboard. We all have to clean our cupboards. So I think the ADHD component is our resistance to cleaning the cupboard and our fear of cleaning the cupboard. Okay, so there's a difference there. All right, keep it simple, stay off Pinterest. Don't have a Pinterest board when you first are tackling some of these organization projects. Those aren't real most of the time anyways, they're staged. And so save that for later when you have like a designer or someone you're working with. Again, clear bins, folders, really basic stuff. You can make it fancier later, but don't make it fancy to start, is what I would say. So keep it simple in the beginning, and then you work your way up from there. And then this one can be similar to resetting. If you have a hard time with that, you could just have a 15-minute tidy in the morning and at night. That's harder as parents. I feel like I have a 15-minute tidy every time my child leaves a room, but like it's also something that can be really helpful, because that means that I don't feel overwhelmed when I wake up in the morning. if I make more mess, I just clean it up and then I start my day. So those are some things that you can try. Any questions on these, or do you want me to clarify any of these? Okay, so this is just for home stuff. Homes also, this is my own thing that I share with my clients. You guys are getting a freebie. So this is actually the one I made for myself because I was a single mom for a couple of years and I was like, how do I do all this? And so what I found is I really hate, doing a push. I'm less likely to spend 4 hours cleaning than I am 20 minutes. And so what I did is I created a little foldable for myself because again, it's folded because if we see all that, that feels overwhelming. So I tri-fold it and then I just look at the daily, which takes me about 15 minutes, and then the day of the week. And that is super straightforward for me. And I have managed to keep that going for a long time. And also I didn't know there were so many things I was supposed to do quarterly until I made this list. And so I have a yearly as well. I didn't know I was supposed to clean my furnace filter. I didn't know my furnace had a filter. So now I know because I wouldn't remember and it's on there and I have it by the time of year that I should be doing that. So I have other stuff like gutter cleaning and things like that. But all of my chores live on this list. It's a foldable. It's really straightforward. I can modify it as much as I want. And it stops me from having to do a big push. Instead, every day I have the habit of I start my day with about 20 minutes of some form of house clean. And now this daily one looks like I'm really extra, right? But it's actually only 15 minutes. So my bed, I literally jump out of bed, make it, and then my son's, and putting away my clothes just means if at night I threw stuff all over. Restocking is literally walking into my bathroom with a roll of toilet paper and be done. So all of these are actually pretty small things, but they add up because if I left them by the end of the week, it would be much bigger for some of the stuff. The bed is just because it's a weird psychological thing. If you start your day out with making your bed, it's actually can help with being more productive and also with having just more tidiness in general. So I just like to do it. I spent the first 35 years of my life not making my bed though, so I'm not judging. It's just what I decided I want to do because I have a unfinished house, open format. I have no doors, so you will always see my bed. And that feels weird, so I have to make it. Any questions on this? This is actually really simple to make. I just did it in Microsoft Word. I just did text boxes and columns, and you can organize it however you want. I think this one even has digital cleaning because I absolutely hate that. So it being on there on the front page bothers me until I finally do it at some point during the year, which I did not do it in February, but maybe April.
Hey, Jessica, I've got
yeah.
you beat a little bit on the, when I started making my bed, I think I was 50.
Yeah.
And it was when I left this long marriage that I had. We never made the bed except for whenever we changed the sheets.
Mm-hmm.
When I decided that I was going to be the type of person who made my bed, there was some sort of rebellious, not even rebellious. I can't quite put a word to it, but it's some sort of paralysis that I would stand there and say, just do it. And sometimes, the very first couple of times, I just pulled the covers up. And simplifying, like you said earlier, making it so that you have, a comforter and a duvet, so it doesn't have to be made like a hotel. You just fluff it.
Yeah. I literally just have really simple stuff. Yeah.
Right. But sometimes, even though I have pretty much consistently made my bed for the last 10 years, I still will go in there and have that paralysis to where I don't want to do it. And sometimes I just have to make myself touch the bed and pull a cover just to kind of break the seal.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. I have that about washing my face. I have so many reasons to wash my face, and every night my face and I have a conversation about why I shouldn't wash it that night.
Yeah.
So that's actually an interesting facet of ADHD is we all get fixated on things that we feel are really, really hard and have barriers to. And for all of us, it's really different. It's really interesting, actually. Thank you for sharing, Beth. Yeah. Go ahead, Sally.
I also think there's something about ADHD as a group where we fight other people's, like I'm the oddball in the sisters as far as tidiness and stuff. And it was like I was beaten up for that. Like you're just a perfectionist, but they wouldn't just let me be. It was very much like what you were saying. I was trying to figure out how to keep my life in order because I needed it. It was really a life, and they didn't need it. They had incredible memories and all the rest of it. It was just easy. So whatever mess there was, but I needed it. But there's also, even I think as individuals, like what you were saying in a way, Beth, it's like we also sometimes fight our own selves saying, I need to do this. It's like somebody, you're going to.
Nobody's going to tell me what to do, not even me.
Yeah. And but this is a big deal. It screws people up in their relationships and in their.
Because people that live with us don't understand that we have that defiance and that paralysis even within ourselves. Not even to what our.
But even if you understand it, it's not a good thing to have to live with, whether you're the person or the partner. I mean, it's a really crippling.
Hashtag self-partner.
I have to share a funny one, guys. I'm sorry, I'm gonna sidetrack us just for a second. My son is 11 and he still hides his underwear all over the house because he doesn't want to change his underwear. It's been a habit we've had for him for his entire life. And apparently putting everything else on is fine, but oh my God, it must be so hard to put underwear on because I'll find it under like pillows, stuck behind the couch, and they're clean. He just was like, yeah, I totally changed my underwear. I'm like, what are these? Some days I'm like, I'll just leave it, whatever, he's dressed. But I think that's an example of like, he has this ridiculous paralysis around underwear. And I'm like, okay, well, hopefully you grow out of that. We'll see. And the thing I want to point out, this is my best case scenario. This is my Martha Stewart, like everything I could think of, I put on here, but I use my judgment and I really do good enough. Like I don't do all those things in the first week of the month. I use my judgment if my car needs to be vacuumed again. If it doesn't, I don't do it. There's a lot of this stuff is just on an as needed basis. I don't make chia overnight oats every Sunday, but the thought is there. So that it reminds me if I do want to, or if I want to try to like have a reach goal for the week, I'll do that. So some of the stuff is just there to inspire me in a way, or to remind me that, oh, that's something I kind of might want to do, but I'm also really kind with myself. And if I don't nail it, I don't feel bad. There's always tomorrow or next Monday or next month. The only things are the furnace filter and things that I really can't. Getting those gutters cleaned every once in a while because they tend to leak over the edge. But most of the stuff, I give myself permission for good enough. So just a reminder because this looks overwhelming. And a lot of people that I know, they use some version of this. And again, the folding is really nice because you don't see all of it and it doesn't feel overwhelming. So this is just one example of a tool you could use for organizing household chores or activities. I like paper because I'll look at it. If it's on my phone, I actually have my phone muted and silent most of the day because I used to be a teacher. So don't call me during the day, but also like I don't use it, I don't look at it. Whereas a piece of paper on my desk, I will look at. So that's why I offer this as a suggestion. Okay. So daily planners, calendars, and schedules, use them. So I'm not going to like beat around the bush on that one. It's demonstrably like good. It will help. Here are the reasons. So it helps you prioritize. Okay. It reduces wasted time and also choice paralysis because you already decided there's nothing to choose. It's right there. It helps you visualize what you want to accomplish. I find that I get more done, and so do a lot of people, because I wrote it down, and I often like do it in a way where I'm like, I can visualize my day. Oh, I'll need to go a little bit earlier due to this and fit in this one like errand I had to do and things like that. So organizing your day in some format, planners is like a whole presentation in and of itself. I would never recommend a planner to a person. You have to really know what you want. But it is powerful in terms of sort of taking charge of your day and being more intentional with it. So this is a different form of organization now. So we've moved away from like house and chores and into just your daily life. They really do work. And so you're not allowed to say they don't work for me. Some form of organization for your day, even if it's just you have a list that you look at where you have 3 priorities and a couple of little like Maybe if I get to it, that's totally fine. There's so many ways to create a plan. It does not have to look like blocking. It does not have to look like every hour of your day has a purpose. In fact, I encourage flexibility. It might just be sometime in the morning, I like to do these things. Sometime in the afternoon, I like to do these things. And in the evening, I like to do these things. And if I can't, that's okay. Again, that flexibility. So I encourage you to explore what that looks like for you. Some people, it's just, again, a foldable. They write down work, home, self, because self-care, you need to add yourself to your planner. It's can be that simple and that low of an investment, a piece of printer paper to start if you aren't sure where to start. Okay. It also declutters your working memory. We get stressed out with how much we have to do, but if we write it down, it's not just floating around in our heads. So it serves a lot of purposes. Phil, do you have anything to like add to that? He just came on. I'm like, yeah, you. I'm like the teacher tonight. I'm like, hey, kid that wasn't
It's
paying
okay.
attention. Yeah, you totally were.
I just stepped away for a phone call, so I don't necessarily know what you've said. I just heard the last thing you said, which is great in terms of I freak out when I have a lot going on because it feels unmanageable because I can't actually wrap my head around everything. And so just having it down somewhere is helpful. And I've gotten so that, like, you know, I use Google Calendar for everything, but in a little bit of what we were sort of talking about earlier, being good enough, I found that, like, in the absence of that, even if I have a piece of paper that I can write down the things that I have or know I have, because I can't always pull out my phone, that's helpful, just to get sort of a sense of it. And one of the things I started doing alongside that is having, I started doing it with physical stuff first, but now I've incorporated it into my Google Calendar, is having sort of goals or reasons why I'm doing things in there, so that, like, all the things I see that I'm doing, I'm like reattaching them to my own desire and or values, and so that's helping, like, reinforce me having agency. And I know it can be really common for those of us with ADHD, when there gets to be a lot of stuff, we can start feeling like we have to do it, or someone is even, like, making us do these things. So ways to sort of re-anchor it and give ourselves agency, and that, like, remind ourselves why we're doing it, can be really helpful.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you, Phil. This is also true for other things like meal planning and things like that. A lot of people struggle with food and food waste, or even having, planned enough so that meal stuff's there and ready, and you don't have to eat out. And so some form of, like, there are lots of ways that you can incorporate planners. My daily planner that I use actually has my 3 meals on it. Because if I have already resigned myself to cooking that night, I'm going to put it that way. I've been cooking for a long time. And I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I think I just want a baked potato, but I have a family, so they want real food. And so once I've already, like, I know that day when I wake up, I'm making that, and I've already, like, done my grocery shopping, then it's much more likely that I'm going to cook it versus just, like, grab something easier out of the cupboard. And so there are a lot of levels that you can apply this planning to that can be really helpful in terms of balancing your life and reducing stress. Because what this does is it basically takes all those to-do items, it makes them visible, but more importantly, it covers up some of them. So remember how I talked about the foldable and it stops you from seeing stuff? When people look at their to-do list for their life, it's like, never mind, I'm going back to bed. So what you do is you pick, like, 1 or 2 things for the week off that to-do list, and then whatever your daily stuff is. And then that makes it much smaller and less like you're going to have a panic attack. And so a planner helps with that as well. So I could talk again I have so many opinions on planners, and I will spare you most of them for right now, but there are lots of ADHD friendly ones out there, or claim to be ADHD friendly. And sometimes that's a good start, but honestly, piece of paper and start playing around with it and see what you need on there. Like I didn't ever used to include self-care, but I'm older. I'm like, wait, I want to be on my to-do list. And so I actually have a planner where it has a self-care category too. And then I'm sad if I don't put anything. So I'll like write something like I'm going to have tea and read because if it's blank, I feel bad now. So, think about what sort of needs you have for a planner even. Do you need meals on there? Because like some of them come with so much stuff and maybe you don't want to have gratitude journaling alongside it. Maybe you don't need to like micro plan your like next 6 months. So really think about what your needs are. And that's why I encourage people to start simple, start with a piece of paper even, and just start breaking down your day into how you want it and then find the right tool that fits. Okay. How many of you?
Can I say one more thing in there
Yeah,
on that?
please do.
Something that I sort of had to figure out, but has been helpful for a lot of clients also is, the big thing about getting the planner is actually using it and remembering
Right.
to use it. I do a lot of stuff sort of at the intersection of games and psychology, and there's a game that I really like, and the way one of the sort of moves in the game is set up is when certain things are triggered by certain conditions. So like when there's a break in action, or when everyone looks to you to see what happened, then these things happen. And so what I started doing is putting up some stuff on my wall, because I would have my calendar and have like a to-do list that may or may not be connected with my calendar, and then like still not know what to do. And so I needed a lot of things to chain together.
Yeah.
When I don't know what to do, or I'm feeling like there's something I should be doing, or I'm feeling kind of helpless, having things that I'm physically seeing, even though they wear out over a while, so I have to change them to keep the novelty, like reminding me to check my calendar, my to-do list. Those are all incorporated for me, but I need something to like get myself back there, because it's really valuable, but I don't necessarily actually like default to thinking about that. So it's taking a lot of getting there.
That's a really good point, Phil. So yeah, most people, that's why I don't recommend planners to start, because most people don't use them. There are a lot of free like printables. It does require starting a new habit. Often the night before is really good. So stacking it with some of your other habits that exist. So if you have a nighttime routine, maybe somewhere in your routine, you just add, and then I sit down and I do my planner. And that way, when you wake up, your day is planned. So it's really helpful to do that. And what Phil was saying, it's helpful to have some system for gathering, whether it's your phone or like sticky notes, or like, a running list where you write down things. I write down things like I'm about to like die if I forget stuff. Cause like I have no short-term memory, I feel like sometimes. And so I like my trigger, like Phil said, is if you tell me something and I'm like, I should remember that, I have like an app for it, Google Keep, or I have a list next to my desk where I put it and then I transfer it later. So you end up building habits around it, but it is good to think about when are you going to do it and how are you going to collect the information you need for it. So thanks for bringing that up, Phil. Yeah. Okay. How many of you can relate to this? Okay, this ties back into I remember sitting distinctly next to one of my colleagues, and she was literally doing inbox zero, and she was like, "Oh, someone just emailed me, and now I have one email. It's the worst." And I was like, "Who are you?" And that was when they were like, "You have 1,000." I'm like, "Yeah, I haven't even opened most of them." And so like I opened the important ones. That's what matters. But it was a big shift for me, but I didn't do it on my own. So I wanted to tell you, share a few of the tools that I found along the way that have worked for myself and for others. Okay. So one of the things that overwhelms us a lot is responding to emails. Okay. Sometimes it's also responding on the phone to messages. That's something slightly different, but I hear a lot about how overwhelming email is. And a lot of our life happens via email. So we get a lot of reminders, and we have a lot of interactions and engagements with businesses or friends or family, and we end up feeling bad when we fall behind. So something kind we can do for ourselves. And one way to look at getting organized is digitally with just email for the focus. So one thing it's a little bit, some people are more comfortable with this than others, and it's easier in Outlook, is to just create folders with rules. Like I used to have folders where if my administration sent me something, it went straight to that folder, and that way I could check for all my high priority emails. I do that less in Gmail. It's a little bit less, it's a little bit clunky, but if you have the right email client, it can be really useful. You can just block, this one I really like, and actually I just got Beth turned onto it. You can block unwanted emails and newsletters with CleanFox. CleanFox is free. It is free and it is easy, and it has deleted like over 10,000 emails for me. Those 10,000 emails were headed from my inbox and it auto deleted them. I unsubscribed, but that I clearly had a lot more than what I realized. So I use CleanFox for all of my email accounts, and it helps get rid of all of that unwanted stuff that isn't just easy to hit unsubscribe, because at some point when you look at your promotions tab, you have 500, and so sitting there and unsubscribing from all 500 is not your ideal day. So you can start with CleanFox, and then when you get a new one, you can just hit unsubscribe. Okay. Another one that's really nice, because visual clutter is the bane of our existence sometimes, would be using Unroll Me. And so what it does is you say, okay, well, I don't want to CleanFox it, I don't want to get rid of it, but I also get sick of it showing up. So I have FOMO around professional developments for all of my ADHD stuff. And so like I subscribe to like every professional development like newsletter. And then at some point that was all that was in my inbox. Who knows if a client emailed me. And so I still have FOMO around it. So I couldn't get rid of them. I wanted the option to maybe someday look at them. And so what Enroll Me allows you to do is say, okay, don't get rid of it, but immediately put it in this folder every day. And so then you can go to your Unroll Me folder, it auto creates it, you do nothing, it auto files it, you do nothing, and all you have to do is check it when you're ready to. And that's the sort of stuff where like, I really have this tea company I love, I don't want to get all their emails all the time, but if I delete them all, I'll be sad because I want it sometimes. And so I put it in there, and I don't have to look at it. So that's your like forget me folder, but like, it's sort of like your magazines you keep meaning to go through. So when you have that feeling around something, you can put it in your Unroll Me. So when you use these two, the idea is what ends up happening is that you just get emails from people, like, and from businesses, or like your Amazon receipt. And that's the stuff that we want to get. So we want to avoid just all of the things that we haven't had time to reduce or eliminate. Don't start with inbox 0. That's not realistic. I have inbox 50. If I'm at 50, I'm feeling pretty good, because I've got those working 50 where I can't decide what I'm doing with them. And so they just sit there. I think inbox 0 would stress me out because I'd feel like I deleted too many things. So realistically, if you're going to start hammering away, I would start with something like CleanFox or Enroll Me, and then start half hour a day, 20 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, whatever you can consistently do. Go in, look at the new ones, and then start working away at the backlog. And again, make it fun. Start your fires, sit, have some tea. It does not have to be the worst, because things that we don't like, we don't do. So how can you create a habit around it that you do like, or that you do look forward to? So think about that. Because if you have to do it some way that you enjoy. That's sort of my MO. Again, when you start getting new stuff, say you ordered from some catalog and they immediately enrolled you and everything, even though you thought you clicked all the boxes that said no, just unsubscribe. It's one of those micro habits that once you've cleaned your inbox, if you do that consistently, it doesn't get recluttered. And it just takes a second to scroll down to the bottom and hit the button. Also, Google searching your emails is your friend. So if you want to get rid of all those Amazon, like, hey, it's on its way. Hey, it's 10 stops away. Hey, it's like 3 stops away. We're here. If you want to go through and get rid of all that, just use the search feature. It'll put them all together, and you can just auto or select all and delete. So there are a lot of ways that you can start working your way through your emails. Does anyone have any questions about these ones? These are a little bit more technical. CleanFox and Enroll Me are just apps you can put on your phone, but you can also use them on your desktop. The phone honestly is a little bit easier, but either one works. Okay. And then these are just some extra resources that you can take a look at. So this one is Organizing Solutions for People with ADHD by Susan Pinsky. And I think everyone I know who works with people with ADHD has this book. And so this is a pretty common one. It has some like tough love in it. Like, yeah, you're gonna get some bins and you're gonna put stuff in those bins. And it's not gonna be perfect. And you're like, oh, okay. So it reminds you that good enough is what you're working for in the beginning, and that if you want to become like more refined with it later, it's okay. But to start off with, it's gonna be a little bit less than what you hope it will end at. And that's fine. That's like most journeys and most projects. If you go to CHADD, Attitude, and ADA, they have so many seminars and resources, honestly. I did a quick Google search and immediately they popped up with a ton of stuff. And so that's also a really good resource, and you don't have to look far for those sorts of things. Some people like to hire a professional organizer. We've actually had a few drop in from time to time in our group. The trick here is don't let your professional organizer talk you into like the complicated stuff. So don't like create complicated systems. You won't use them. So try to find a professional organizer that is ADHD friendly and knows that you should not have like a 10-tier system for your recipe cards. You should just have a box. So think about that when you're looking for a professional to work with. These apps are fantastic for starting the habit of organization. I like them. I call them journey apps because they will actually help you through the process of starting the habit. So Fabulous is a really nice one. Habit Nest is actually the one I use for starting some of my new habits, like my morning routine that I'm rebooting. And Finch is just good for families. So if you have families, it's a shared ecosystem. So you guys interact with each other, in which this is the only app that I've ever found where that exists. And it also has a lot of really good like mindfulness practices. So if you have a young person in your home, it helps them develop some of those skills also. And it's really good for goal setting and visualizing. And there's a cute bird that you get to dress, which sounds hokey when you're adult, but then I'm a parent and I've been using that app for over a year now because I'm like, no, not just for my son anymore. Now I need to get like the safari shirt for my, my Finch. So it can be really fun. And again, whatever motivates you. So for me, if it's like cute and interactive with my kid, I love it. I'm going to do it. If for you, it's like really streamlined and pretty and has motivational things, use that, and again, if it's none of those, don't use any of those. They don't have to work for you, and that's okay. These are just some things that I know work for other people or for myself. There are a ton, I'm not even gonna list them, of apps for breaking down organizing and chore sharing in families and with partners. So that's always out there. So that's one way for you together, because you kind of need everybody on board for organizing the house. Create something that works for both of you or for all of you. And then finally, what ideas do you have or what questions do you have? Well, I guess we'll start with questions. Does anyone have any clarifying questions about any of the stuff or need me to go back to any of the slides?
I'm setting up CleanFox right now.
Oh yeah, I know. I was doing it last night again. I was like, okay, because I showed it to Beth. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna go through it. No, it felt so good. Felt so good.
I have an appointment with myself and CleanFox and trying to get my Outlook password fixed.
The only disappointing thing at first is CleanFox won't delete what you already have, which I really wish it did, but it will delete all incoming.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what you said with the Google, you would folders and you'd have stuff go into different folders.
Yeah. So if you use Outlook or Gmail as well, and I don't know about the other ones, but I'm sure the other.
I use Google Calendar.
Okay. Yeah. So in Gmail, you can set rules. I would look up a video for it. It's not as intuitive as Outlook. And I actually had to like figure out how to set it correctly for it to do it all of the time. Because it's not always the best at catching if a company is sending you from multiple emails, like their service department and their like survey department and their like promotions department. But it will eventually catch all of the emails. You just have to add them. So yeah, Sally, if you send an email to Beth, I will send you some resources on how to set that up. Or I guess I'm also, so send it to us. Beth used to have the magic way of getting into the email, and I was like, I don't know, but now I can too. So yeah, send us an email
Okay.
and we'll send you some resources on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Seattle at chadd.org.
Any other questions about any of the things we went over, or anyone need me to go back a slide?
No, I think we need a support group for buying too many plastic storage containers.
Oh yeah, don't buy it unless you already know where you're going to put it. That's my last piece. Don't pre-buy. Don't be like, I'll use this somewhere. Actually know that you need to use it and then go buy it. Yeah, that's a really good point, Beth. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't let you into my basement yet. Sarah, do you like the Habitica? I've seen it, and it I
Yes.
think it would be really good for the entire, I think it requires people that you know, right? So it'd be really great for everybody to
haven't-
do it.
I haven't tried it yet, you guys, but I heard it from somebody's through their ADHD coach. They recommended it.
Mhm.
We
So
do it on these meetings.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard with those ones. The reason why I recommend the journey ones, just to take a look, is because sometimes the habit trackers become a new habit you have to form to fill out. And unless it's rewarding enough, because unless you're like seeing how much you're just doing amazing all the time and you're like, yeah, I'm always going to fill it out, people end up stopping because it's just something that's tedious that they forget to do. That's not always true. Sometimes some of these are really lovely and beautiful, and Habitica is actually a really good one that Sarah threw in there. The reason why I recommend starting and taking a look at the journey ones is because there's so much more going on. They'll send you videos like for 30 seconds to watch. It gets your attention. It's novel and it's interactive in a way that our brains like. And I find that if we have a reason to keep going back to it because we like it and we get something out of it besides clicking a box, we're more likely to use it. But again, everybody's different. And there are some really amazing ones up there. There are even ones that gamify it. So you can like have a little, I can't remember what the name of it is, but essentially you can have your little game and be doing your habit tracking at the same time. So
Yeah, Super Better is one of those that sort of gamifies it and sort of auto includes some basic self-care stuff too. But that and Habitica, both, like, the more that you put into it, the more that you get out of it. And so I found for folks that if you're a person that like latches onto it and hyper focuses and creates a lot of stuff, there's this like balance point of like, you need to do more than the basics of what's there, but you can also create way too much, and then you're not going to follow up with it because there is too much. But also like hooking up with other people that are doing it, connecting, can be a great thing as well. And that's true for the email management and stuff like you were saying. If you're going to spend some time doing it, almost everybody, regardless of ADHD, like has stuff like that that they would find useful. And so I'm sure you have another person in your life, and that becomes a lot easier than just like sitting down to like, okay, I'm going to go through my emails.
Yeah, you could literally have them on Zoom and be talking to them while you're both cleaning your email inbox and complaining about it. Like have a work party around it, or have someone just go to a coffee shop with you and then go for a walk after and feel good about yourself. That's how we create reoccurring like habits, is because it's self-rewarding. It's not because we got a treat afterwards necessarily, maybe in the beginning, but later it's just because it feels good to do it. And so as much as you can establish a positive association with something, you're going to have way less resistance and you're going to be much more likely to go back to it. So that's why I always encourage people to have fun when they're doing stuff. So like I hated my commute from Renton. Gabe, I used to commute from Seattle to Renton every day. And I started just putting like licorice sticks in the back of my car. And then I had like my favorite like audiobooks. I had to plan it ahead because if I was tired, when the went on. And so I was like, if I have to be in this car for 45 minutes or an hour, I'm going to like it. And then I ate licorice sticks, so I had to change it. But but you know, there's that I started looking forward to it more for sure. So I had a little snack. I had my book. It was great.
Can I ask, in terms of organization, what, like, I understand using your calendar for it. I have I've got a little bit of a double whammy because I have dyscalculia as on top of the ADHD. So my time blindness is completely out of control. And so like I have next to no sense of the passing of time. And I just got one of those big clocks with the physical dial where you can actually see the time counting down. That's been wild. But like when I can't tell you how much that's changed my life. But I'm having I have a really hard time like when I'm working tasks or like when I'm on the phone with someone, sort of keeping track of how much time is going by. And I'm just wondering if you have any ideas or if there's any tools out there to just sort of like keep the time.
Yeah. So Gabe, I've got the same issue. And, you know, so many times even people with ADHD will remind me if I would just try hard enough or maybe try this tool. And the time blindness is a real thing. And there's two things that happen. One is our experience with time, the fact that we cannot do negative numbers, because that is part of what planning, it's an executive function where you have to be able to count backwards in order to plan out how long something's going to take. So there's all these different things that we experience in our executive function dysfunctions with I can never say the word, the dyscalculia, what you just said. I always think of like the Count Dracula cereal. But the thing is that there's that, and then there's the things in our lives that like we shoot ourselves in the foot, and then there's life experiences, like because I don't change the batteries in the clocks on the wall, I get nailed. Even when I am being hyper vigilant, I get nailed because the clock is dying and it's slow or fast or whatever. And I'm like, I'm so tired of the excuses to people. I just say,
yeah,
screwed up, I'm sorry, I didn't leave in enough time, when in fact the battery died, or there's somebody parked in front of my garage, or there's a ton of things that are life happening to us. And there are a ton of things that we do on our own that makes it so that it doesn't matter. We're tired of the excuses. Everybody else is.
Yeah. Well, and
I don't have any suggestions. I'm just commiserating with you.
I'm just trying to figure. So I took on a new role at my job that is super phone intensive, and the problem is that you'll get people who will just absolutely like they'll take over your day if you let them. And because I don't have any sense of the passenger time, you know, I'm sitting there like, and you know, I vaguely do, but like it's not like I don't know that, oh hey, this call's been going for 20 minutes now. It's just like I keep dealing with whatever's right in front of my nose. And so that's why I'm trying to figure out a way to sort of, if anyone knows how to sort of deal with the time blindness aspect better, like that's sort of the thing that is really kicking my butt right now.
Oh yeah, actually, Sally, go ahead. You have one too.
Yeah.
Gabe, I don't see you. Can you see?
Yeah, I can see you.
So these little guys, timer, you can turn it on to.
Yep. I got that.
Right.
That's the thing. That's the thing that just changed my life.
Oh, good.
It's very simple, and it, you know, and for me, it helps to get me started to do something. If I'm resisting it, I go 10 minutes and it'll ring, you know, and I find if I just start it, I keep going, you know, it's the weirdest. I know this, but it's it's crazy stuff in your head.
I like this one because you just flip it to the side that you want, and then you just turn it over. And I like it because I like the digital better than the analog. Yeah, this is something we can share. It's just off Amazon. I think it was like $15. And the nice thing is it has like 8 different versions, so you can get whatever numbers you want. And I actually use this with my kid a lot because then he can't tell me he didn't know he was supposed to turn his iPad off. So
It
Ah,
depends on your objective. If he's on the phone, I did sales, advertising sales. And I didn't have something like this, obviously, but what's nice here is you can see how many minutes are left and it goes
Yeah.
red, you know?
Yeah.
So it really tells you, you've got this many minutes. It's very visual right in front of you. So if you're on the phone and you find you're on with me, which is, I will be one of those long-winded ones, is amazing. And it's not financially feasible for the other side to have somebody gabbing away. But it also has to do with your needing to pull it together too. It's got this combination of things, but this really, I think, is helpful. That would be a fun addition too, because there are times
Yeah.
that it's really nice.
what I like about it is that it sets it to whatever increment it's on. And then you have to physically turn it off. It'll never stop beeping and it really irritates you. So
got it.
you don't get to just walk off and be like, oh, I don't know. Like not
Yeah.
picking your phone. So
Well,
yeah.
it's like I set the clock, I set the physical dial clock for like 10. I'm trying to keep it to 10 minutes a call, and then it'll ding. And then the moment the clock stops, I don't realize it's there anymore. So then 20 minutes can go by, so like while it's actually counting down, I got it. But the moment it stops counting down, that's where I keep losing it. So I'm trying to get it together with that, but
So what I do with myself on, like for this meeting, I have on my phone, I just use the timer and I have it go off at, if it's 6:30, I'll have it go off probably 4 different times, but it'll be 5 minutes before. Sometimes if I'm really, I'll even the same time as it starts. So it really will remind me what you're doing. You could do exactly the same thing. You just set it for a certain, if you're supposed to be finishing a phone call in a certain amount of time, make sure you do. And you just go have it ring at different times. And even if people hear it, it might even be helpful if it gets to the end there, somebody.
yeah.
Yeah, I set it for 15 minutes before I'm supposed to be done with something, and then I'll do like 5 minutes before. Because I anticipate that I need to wind down, but I won't necessarily stop the first time. But the second time, I'm much more likely to already have been thinking about it and be more, it's sort of like when you ask your kid the second or third time, they're more likely to do it. But frankly, I have accidentally found the key to getting off my client calls, which is I have my Google Home, and apparently I set it to some outstandingly loud alarm noise. And so it'll go off and they'll be like, okay, well, we'll see you. And I'm like, all right, bye. That was really nice talking.
See, that's what I was trying to get to. It's like you figure out how that can help you gauge it as you're going, so you don't get at the end and you're rude to them. That's not good.
Anyways, I hope that helps.
That's good, because then it goes, oh, I'm so sorry, I have to go. Whatever.
Yeah, it's so yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna try this week and just see what I could do. I gotta
I use my cell phone with almost all these things.
the problem with the cell phone is that I've ignored it so many times I barely hear it going off now.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I need
there are
to
some
get
of these
something-
alarms that you can't ignore. I mean, some of them are, many of them are really awful sounds. I mean, terrible sounds.
Yeah, I gotta find something that's not gonna offend delicate sensibilities, because like holy mackerel, this week has been the phone calls this week have been really abusive. So it's just been like not a fun week. So yeah, the more I'm well motivated to like find a solution. We'll put it that way.
I wanted to add something that, if I could, it's very quick. I'm reading a book. What's it called? So How Women Rise, but it's relevant for anybody. Just these are by Sally Helgeson. This is excellent. And all women here I really think it's excellent, but I think it's great for everyone. But one of the things she was talking about was that, in corporations, you are always pushing for how much you've earned on time, all these different things, the things you should be doing, this list of things you should be doing. And they've done, the data proves that that can be overwhelming. And one of the things that's been the most efficient people, they're actually looking for the things I should not be doing. What should I be withdrawing myself from. So, you know, what do you do that is undercutting you? These little things, and I hadn't thought of it, you know, but they've actually proved it with data that really does make a difference. But most of the companies are going a totally different direction. They're adding more stuff.
We actually call that tolerations in coaching. So what are you tolerating in your life? And tolerating means like you've just kind of let it sit. You don't really want it. You don't really like it. You don't even need it, but you just haven't done anything about it or addressed it. And it's very similar to what you're talking about, Sally. And sometimes making your tolerations list is a good place to start figuring out where you want to make change or what you can get rid of in terms of organization and stuff like that. So yeah. Like I have all of my mom's dishware in my basement and I should grab it. I've been tolerating that for years.
Instead of the to do, they're saying, put on there what you should not do. So if you're getting out of your bed and you don't make it, I don't know that instead of, I don't know what, that's not the one, but it's like some of the things we do that are undercutting us rather than adding more to-do lists, you know, things. I don't know.
Yeah, being more efficient, because I noticed for myself, it's like there's things that I do carelessly because I'm so bad with some of this stuff that it's like I end up creating more problems for myself, you know, down the road. So that's one of the reasons I've been trying to get so organized around time, you know. And it's really been a challenge. Just it's one of those things where I never really got how sort of disabled I am with that and how much it impacts my life. So yeah, it's been a rough week.
Yeah, so for me, like a don't do would be don't do more than once with your email per day, or at the beginning and at the end, but don't go anywhere near it during the rest of the day because I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it can derail the whole day if I do that. Because
yeah. Oh, okay. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Jessica, I know you got a roll.
Yeah, I got to go, but it was so nice talking with you guys. I hope some of those tips were helpful. If you want clarification or if you have more ideas that you think we should share next time, please feel free to send us an email. I feel like I'm a tool and strategy like hoarder. So just tell me and I'll like compile them. Okay. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. And I hope to see some of you at the parents meeting. Good night.
Good night.